guest is our dear, wonderful friend, 𝗕𝗲𝗆 Decker, the artistic director of Mildred's Umbrella. Hi, 𝗕𝗲𝗆.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. So how are you feeling? How are you doing? How's the COVID quarantine treating you?
You know, I'm tired of my house, but you know, I feel like I'm getting a lot of meetings done without having to commute. That's good.
Yeah.
So I seem to get like a lot of things done.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some strange advantages sometimes to us having to have take a year break where people are at home more and you can get a little bit more done. But I think I've seen a lot of people posting lately. I think you and me too, about being kind of starting to get lonely, starting to get that missing of people. And yeah. So.
Yeah, it feels a little isolated, and you know, it's weird because what we do, we're used to being around people all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm also a teacher, a college teacher, so I'm like usually in a room full of people all day, and then I go to the theater and I'm in a room full of people there, and for like a year now, I've only seen people on these Zoom squares.
I know.
A year.
I know. Can you believe it? It's almost a year.
Yeah.
I know.
Who knew?
Well, we do have a little hope on the horizon. We're rolling out a vaccine, and hopefully as we approach summer, we'll see what's going on with the numbers, and maybe we can all be back in the theater in the fall. That's what I think most people have their fingers crossed for. But I know, speaking of theater, you have something going on right now, which is one of our favorite productions we ever had an opportunity to see at Studio 101. Which was a part of a production you did in the theater. Were we still partners back at that point, or were you renting at that point?
Oh yeah,
right?
we were still regularly in the space. Yeah.
Yeah, we were still together. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Kim is talking about a play called The Drowning Girls, which was produced there we go.
Yep. It's running right now through February 6th online. 𝗕𝗲𝗆, talk a little bit about Drowning Girls and how you found that and you know, how it came into being. I know you had a relationship with the writer, so give us a little background.
Actually, one of our artists, John Harvey, who's a director and also a sound designer, some people that are watching might know him. He saw an article about it from a Canadian French festival. So he showed me all this stuff, the pictures, the article, and he was like, we should try to get this script. This looks like something that we should do. And so I took me a while to get the script because it wasn't published. They were still performing it and creating it as they were performing it in Canada. And finally got a script. We realized we should do that play for sure. It's about it's a 3-woman show with bathtubs full of water. And it's about the brides in the bath murders. This man was like a bigamist and a serial murderer in England in the early 1900s. And the court case was like really important because it was, not only did it change the way they deal with forensics in the police there, and then it came here too, but also how they deal with court cases where they use like another crime that someone did to show the guilt of the person that they're trying. So there were just a lot of things connected to it that were interesting. And it's 3 playwrights that also were part of the creation of the actual show. I think at least 2 of them were in the show, and 2 of the playwrights were women. So we got the script. It took us probably like 5 years to get the rights because they were still touring it. So that's it was a long time before we actually got him, and then we got an NEA grant, which was a really big deal for us because that's really competitive, and I don't even know how we got it. Between that and then an American Theater Wing grant, so it all happened right then. So we had a little extra money, and we could like really do it right with the running water and the tech and all of that. So
I remember it was I don't know if shocking is the right word. Maybe it was shocking. Being in the audience, and we put that photo up for a minute, but there were these 3 bathtubs, and these 3 women would be totally immersed in the bathtub, and they recreated am I giving something away? Hopefully not, but they recreated the murders in a way, and they would be, you know, totally drenched in water and standing in these these tubs, and it was so also because it was in Studio 101, which most people who are watching this will have experienced. You know, it's a small venue, so you were right there, and
Yeah.
you could hear the dripping coming off of these bodies, and it was shocking.
It was pretty great. Yeah. It was very exciting and great actors. You know, you had somebody we've used at times, Courtney LaMello, and Patricia Duran, who we've had in some readings. We haven't had an opportunity to have her in a production.
We've
at
offered
this
her
point.
some
We've
roles.
offered her some, but she was busy.
Patricia,
Either with you, she was busy with you or someone else. And then Miranda. Her
Yeah, Miranda Morris, yeah, was the
Morris.
third one.
Right.
And 𝗕𝗲𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗏 did the set.
It's
And
sad.
actually, if anybody does want to see it, so it's free, and it was one of the things that we got a really good video of.
Yeah.
That's why we're releasing it now, because most of our archival videos are crap.
Yeah.
They did not come out watchable. And that one, I was going through it, I was like, oh my God, this one's watchable. It almost feels like you're there, because the person who did it was really professional and did a good job. And so I made a little making of with interviews with everybody video that's on our Vimeo page with that. So people can see like the making of, and it was a big deal for us just because we are so low budget and so small, that pulling that off was a really big deal for us.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. It was done really well, and people should watch it because it's
Yeah.
also a great play. It was done beautifully, and it's a wonderful opportunity to see it for free. Now, with that in mind, we've got that up for you, that you've got running. Do you have anything else in mind that you guys might be looking forward to here in the spring that you plan on that we can talk about, or do you still have those ideas in the works?
Well, we we're all limited to digital stuff, and I didn't want to do too much of the same thing, which is readings, but which is what we've been doing. We've done a couple of things, a little bit special versions of that, but we have a reading series called FemFest, and that's where we have three female playwrights of whatever demographic we're focusing on. So we just did Black women's voices in December, but we filmed that one live on a stage outside. So we used like a little backyard stage that we borrowed for that, and just filmed the actors reading and moving around too. There was some blocking for that, but this will be digital, but we're going to try to make it a little bit more special, movie-like, not completely, but more than just Zoom squares. And it's going to be the COVID edition. I might call it Apocalypse. I've been getting a lot of plays submitted by playwrights that I have relationships with, or just people that know about us, that are about that, or about like the after effects of it. So there's at least 3 that I've got. And so normally it's like we had an Israeli female playwrights that was in collaboration with the Israeli consulate and the JCC. That one was live because it was before all this happened.
Right.
And then we did Voices of Asia with the Asia Society. But by that time we had to be on Zoom. And then Black women's voices. So we're going to do this one where it's not a particular demographic, but they're all about COVID, after effects, people going through whatever because of an apocalypse of some sort.
Yeah, well, that sounds great.
Are you planning a season for when things normalize, or is that still in the future?
Well, I've been told by my board that fall is the earliest that we can do a live production, and we have to make that TBA. And I think that's kind of what everybody was.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're hoping, but we've got stuff in the works and thoughts, but we don't want to announce it to anybody and then have to pull it back again. I mean, how many times did we all pull back, announce dates, believing that things were going to be different? So we all want to be a little safer, I think, this time, with waiting to see how the vaccine works and hoping we're.
Yeah, I mean, we were selling tickets to something that was supposed to happen last May, and when this all went down in March, I thought, well, maybe we'll still do it.
I know.
We had to start rehearsal right then, but I thought it would be a couple of weeks.
We kept the Riverside set up until the set for Riverside, between Riverside and Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
we just kept going, well, maybe just get back on it, and now we finally went, let's just store it.
I know, and I was really sad to miss that because I had tickets that one night. Remember, I had tickets, and I was like, my husband's saying we can't go because he's scared. And
Well, we will probably do that show again. We did
Oh, I
store
remember,
the
that's
set,
right. You were
so,
gonna come and
yeah.
then you bailed out. I
Yeah,
remember
which
now.
it was like right when it all went down. It was that day
Sure.
that
Yeah, a
everything
lot
was
of people
shut
did.
down.
Yeah, don't think you're alone in that. So that was totally okay.
Yeah.
And we do hope we will pull that set out of, storage someday and put that
We'll
back
do-
up.
We'll be
So,
doing that play
yeah,
again.
It looked good. Yeah, I was really sad to miss it.
a really great writer too. So, but yeah. So now, so we also noticed that you are, if we're not mistaken, I think we mentioned this before, that you're coming up on your 20 years here as a Houston mainstay and a very important part of our theatrical culture here in Houston. And so what's that like for you, having to figure that out while you're kind of on your own, locked up at home? But it's got to still be exciting, even if you come out in this fall, you're coming out in your 20th season. That's kind of fun.
It is actually, I think August would be it was 2001 when we did our very first show.
Mhm.
Because I remember 9/11 happened and we had a show that night. And I think we had to we canceled that performance, but
Sure.
we were like, "Ooh, should we cancel the whole thing?" Because it was our very first show.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I almost forgot that it was 20 years. I think that I just feel like I lost a year just now.
know.
So I almost forgot. So maybe, if we do something in the fall, yeah, maybe we will say 20 years
Yeah.
officially. It was our very first show. I didn't know what I was doing. I remember thinking I was never going to do that again. I was like, I'm never.
Everybody thinks that, right? When they start producing, they're
That
like,
was
what am I
hard.
thinking?
It was way harder than I thought it was gonna be. I'll never do that again.
And then
I
look
was an actor, and a playwright was like, "Hey, you're an actor. Do you know some other people we might be able to do this play?" And I was like, "I mean, I've been in some plays. I've been in a lot of plays. Like, I guess we should be able to do it." And then we got started with it, and then I was like, I was like, I had a director, and then he bailed on me. And I didn't know how to direct. And so I got criticized in the review for my directing. I was like, I don't know how to direct. I didn't even want to do this. And so I said, and I lost about 15 pounds. I was really skinny. I was smoking back then and drinking coffee, and I never ate any food.
right. Yes.
So yeah, it was
boys
very
abuse.
stressful.
Wait a minute. So I've actually, you've told me the story, but I think it would be fun for people to hear, and I may have forgotten part of it. Why did you start? I mean, you've said, okay, you didn't want to do it, but you started it and you gave the theater a name and you started down a road that it's now 20 years later and you're still doing it. I know your mission has changed,
Right.
Or at least your focus has changed.
Yeah.
Tell our audience that story in case they don't know it. Just, sort of how Mildred started and how it evolved into what it is now.
Well, I was perfectly happy just, acting in shows now and then. But I met this guy, and he was teaching a creative writing workshop that I was in. His name is John Harvey. And he was
Different John
also a
Harvey.
professor.
There's
Not the
two
same John
Har-
Harvey that directed.
very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a professor at U of H and also a poet. But he had this idea. I think he saw a movie, and I can't remember the name of the movie. I watched it afterwards, but he had this idea of starting like one of those theater troupes, like Shakespeare type of theater troupe where everybody helps create the piece. And he wrote this crazy play that really was it was really a poem with dialogue assigned to different people, but it was based on one of his personal experiences. And so I was I think I was acting in a show, and I was in his workshop, and I gave him a flyer. I was like, "Hey, I'm acting in this show, come see it." And so about a month after the class was over, he emailed me, and he said, "Do you want to have coffee? I want to talk to you about doing a play." And so that was in 2001 in the spring. And so when I realized it was all going to be on me, because I had to figure out how to do everything.
Yep.
And I didn't really have any mentors, because the people that I knew there were people that had theaters, but there wasn't really anybody who had done anything startup that I knew. I met the people at Infernal Bridegroom later. And so I was just figuring things out on my own and begging people for different things to borrow. And we had $500, like, like $500 for that first show. And then we needed to have a name for it because I realized I probably need to send something to the press. And I asked the guy who I was renting a theater from, who was Joe Watts, who had Theater New West. I don't like a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it was in Montrose, and it was this little theater, and he wasn't using it right then. So I said, "Can I rent this from you?" And someone had pointed me his direction, and I asked him, what do your press releases look like? And he gave me one of his old press releases, and so I wrote it. And I'm like, we got to have a name. So John was teaching a literature class, and we were just looking through his textbook, and there was Gertrude Stein has a collection of poems called Tender Buttons, and they're these little snippets, run-on sentences. They don't make any sense. And there was one called Mildred's Umbrella, and it was like a cause and no curve, a cause and a loud crash, a cause and well enough, or something like that. It was just like this run-on sentence that was like not about Mildred or an umbrella. And I'm like, that's the one. And then we went to New York together because I said, I don't know how to direct a play. I need to see some other plays. Like I need to see a bunch of plays. So we went to New York and we watched The Invention of Love and the play about the baby, 𝗘𝗲𝗆𝗀𝗆. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this now.
Oh, I know how to direct a play.
Right.
Now I know how to direct a play,
That's
but I
it.
didn't.
I'm good.
I had to do it about 6 or 7 times before I had the slightest clue what I was doing. And I had to
Okay.
ask a lot of people for their advice and their ideas. And yeah.
Well, sure.
Well, when I first got to Houston, right around the time you started, or at least when I started to kind of spend more time in Houston and have time to see plays, I remember Mildred's was, you know, to me, as an outsider, it seemed like it was actually kind of what you were talking about then, which was a company of people who actually all kind of did stuff. Is that true?
Mhm.
Or-
Oh yeah, there were like 5 of us. It was myself,
Yeah.
it was John Harvey, it was Michelle Edwards, Patricia Duran,
Eric?
Eric Doss, who's in New York now, and that's 5, right? Yeah, and Greg Dean was like in and out. He was there, and then he wasn't, and then he was back, and it was basically like 5 or 6 of us all the time doing everything. So sometimes I would direct, and sometimes I would act, and Patricia would direct. We all directed at least
Sure.
one, even John, who
Yeah.
who was the playwright. And we all did. I built sets. I did costume design sometimes. Patricia did sound design. We brought in people like Christy Guidry was one of the early people too. She built sets by herself, designed and built them.
That's great.
Yeah.
But now my impression is that now, I mean, that felt like a collective. Now it feels to me like it's more like Jennifer you are the artistic director, and it's sort of changed in that way. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, we just keeping it like that was not working anymore when we needed to have a bigger budget. Like when we got the space with you guys and having to like come up with the money every month, and I just couldn't and a lot of those people would drop off. You know, they would find I couldn't do it with the same people all the time
Yeah.
because especially the actors, because they would get more work somewhere else. And I mean, what can I say? I can't keep them on the hook for me all the time. I mean, they have to, especially like Patricia was getting jobs at the Alley, and she went off to New York too. And John got a full-time job at U of H. And so like the only constant ever was me.
Yeah.
And so other people were coming in and out, and I just couldn't keep it like that. I never had the same people. It was sort of like the Beatles in a way. Like think about the Beatles if one of them was a different guy.
Right?
It just wouldn't be the same, you know? So like if it dissolved and I tried to like put the Beatles back together with different people, it just wasn't going to happen. So I just kind of like made it into a more traditional situation where basically I am the only constant still, but I have people helping with the administrative stuff. And then we just assign a director and hire and cast it like a normal theater now. And that's been probably for at least 10 years, we've been doing it that way.
Yeah. And when did you change your focus to be women's work?
That was in 2013. It was when we were all in the incubator program at HAA. They encouraged us to try to find a focus because we didn't have a very specific mission. And a lot of people that were mentoring us there thought that we were sort of the little sister of 𝗕𝗲𝗆𝗆 or something, and that we needed to have more of a really specific, because we were doing a lot of edgy, like almost like experimental sometimes theater. But when we went to look for a focus, it seemed like when we weren't doing John Harvey's plays, my co-founder, I was choosing the plays and they were almost always by women. So mostly because that's who I had, as far as women seem to write better female characters. And I had a lot of really great women and not so many men. And I guess also those plays would normally speak to me more because the female characters were actual people with like real goals and issues and a real journey, instead of just being like an accessory or a stereotype.
Yeah, sure. So, I understand that.
Yeah.
A lot of that.
We did, like, I think we might have actually premiered like Naomi Wallace. That was One Flea Spare. I think we premiered her.
Remember that.
Not Edna O'Brien, maybe Edna O'Brien, Bryony Lavery. I believe we might have premiered her too. But one of those two, I think Theater Lab did one of their plays first. I can't remember which one it was. But we had several of them that female writers. I had gone to see, there was a play that I saw in London by the Bog of Cats, Marina Carr.
Oh yeah.
And nobody had done it here. I had read it in a class, and then I went to London that same year and I saw Holly Hunter in it. And I came back and we did it. Michelle Edwards played the lead. And Patricia was like the crazy swamp lady, and like Eric Doss was in it. Like we still had our old group together. Christy was in it, and it was great. And we did it on this crappy little stage, Midtown Arts Center, not Match.
No, I remember Midtown Arts Center. I remember going out there to see your plays.
I remember going out there too. I saw One Flea Spare out there.
Yeah.
That's the first time I'd ever been in that space. I was like, wow.
Wow, is right.
Do they still, is that place still?
I don't think it's still there.
Available?
It is.
Oh, wow.
It's right across from the HCC campus where I teach, and it's still there.
Do stuff there?
I think so. They got themselves labeled a historical building, so they're still doing shows there. But they won't answer the phone when you call or like ever get back to you if you email them. So I don't know who's getting through to rent that.
Yeah, nobody's managing it very well, but there you go. No, I remember that. And then I remember too, when we were all at the Susan Smith Blackburn in at the Alley, and I read that play from that London playwright, the Foxfinder, which was also so great, and you did such a wonderful production of, which had not ever been done here. Thanks. Yeah, nobody had done that playwright either. There were several of the female playwrights. I mean, now everybody's on it. Yeah. But that was a great play too. I remember reading that and I thought of you immediately when I read that. I was like, yeah, you were the one that sent it to me. Thank you. Because it was one of our more popular productions. Yeah, it was really good. You guys did a great job. That was really, I'm so happy somebody did it. Yeah, and that's a wonderful avenue for people that more people should look at the Susan Smith Blackburn plays. Those plays are wonderful. And we have an executive director who was on our show a while back, Leslie Swackhammer, right here in Houston, who will be happy to help anyone who wants to look at those plays. So
I think she mentioned on Facebook today that it's like another week or two and they'll be announcing the
prize and the finalists. So
that's always exciting.
Mm-hmm. So it's great that they're still doing the prize even when we're in. Of course, writers are writing.
There's a cat channel.
Oh, there's Winky. Hey. Hi, Winky.
There's animals all over this.
I know, right?
Like a zoo over here.
Trip home. We get to see everybody's animals.
Yeah.
I know, right? I've got mine in my lap because she's been like totally being a problem.
Get down.
Oh, Uh-oh.
Like he's
Bye-bye.
trying to sign
Yeah.
off.
Wink's like, take it, get off, Mom.
He was on my computer. He was on my keyboard.
Well, so yes, so so you've talked a little bit about acting and directing and that you do everything. And I know, I know I asked you a lot of questions when we started here. I had done some producing and stuff in New York, and I've always been one of those that's kind of ran around and produced plays when I wasn't having any work or stuff with my friends. So I was scrapping like you for a long time. But in your many years here in Houston, what do you think is the most challenging thing for you about producing in Houston as a small theater company? What are the challenges you find, whether it's in just producing a play itself, keeping a theater company alive, artists? I mean, what do you find the hardest hurdles sometimes to jump?
I mean, just getting people to take it seriously as an art form that people do for a living, instead of thinking that everyone that does it is doing it as a hobby. That's one problem. There's a really blurry line between the people who do it as a hobby and the theaters who are using trained artists. So I think that it's just, I mean, both people work in both places, a lot of the same people. And so, a lot of people think that it isn't something that needs funding,
Yeah.
but or that they, that it's just something that everyone that's involved does for fun,
Mhm.
in addition to another job. That's a problem, but I think that it's because this was like for such a long time, such a business town. Because when I started Mildred's Umbrella, there wasn't a whole lot of variety in theater at that point. You guys, when you guys started your theater, and then classical, and then there's some others now that weren't around back then, but there were a lot of really like good little edgy, super creative groups that just didn't make it because it just gets too hard without funding. So I'd say money, I'd say like just support in general.
Yeah.
For a long time, the bigger theaters like really weren't paying attention to the smaller theaters at all. That's changed a little.
Yeah, that's gotten a little better. I have to agree, but I think
Yeah.
you're right about the funding issue is very hard. And I think we have this conversation a lot, the whole, just the awareness that people have as citizens that, actors and directors and even admin in many cases don't make any money. And that, a production, even a $25 to $45 ticket only covers a third to half of the cost of a production. It's
Mhm.
not like that covers paying people $800 a week or something. People's understanding of how money is spent and where it goes isn't always it's not very linear for them. They don't really understand. And they also think I think like we've talked about that it's the passion thing. Like, well, if you have passion, I'm like, no, I have a degree. I'm like, I actually got an education for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that. And then, like for a long time, and when we did the Drowning Girls, so that play was like 2015. And then right after that, we had McLaughlin's Dracula. Those are the two plays that we were like really at the top of our like sort of popularity and economic status and everything. And one of the reasons that we were doing so well then is because, when we had Everett Evans writing for the Houston Chronicle, he was writing all the time. And even if he gave you a bad review, he would do it in a really like professional and a way that distanced himself from his opinion from what he was seeing. And
Yeah.
it was like free publicity. I mean, we got free publicity that way. And he would always make sure to include the smaller theaters that he felt were worthy of getting that. And then that stopped. And like,
Well, I
it's
think
like, we have no support anymore.
no,
in that
it's an
area.
interesting thing. I think Everett saw his job first as getting people to the theater. And
Mhm.
second, giving his own opinion about being his own opinion, tooting his own opinion about what he thought something was. So if he didn't like a play, he would say he didn't like it, or he would
Right.
say that, this performer didn't quite fulfill the role in the manner that I would have thought, but he never was like, this is the most horrible thing I've ever seen. You would never have heard that come out of Everett.
He sometimes got there a little, but
But it was like
Rarely. Yeah.
it wasn't like he was taking it personally or anything.
Yes, it didn't
But he
feel
would
like
always make sure to like try to get out. I don't even know how that man saw so much theater, but he would always make sure. And we had, and it was like the only way to get the word out sometimes about a play if you didn't have a marketing budget.
Right. And the Chronicle is great because so many people read it, and people, take the physical paper, and they like to have the physical paper.
It's weird because the online model has killed theater criticism because, the editors at the Chronicle say, well, nobody clicks on it, so nobody's reading it. Well, that says you, but every time there was a review in the Chronicle of something we did, it always resulted in ticket sales.
sales.
Oh yeah.
So people
They're
were
reading it.
it.
Right.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I guess.
It's okay. They're allowed to be involved, have an opinion about what's being spoken about. Yes. I've made, my voice heard different times about, critical review and journalism in the way that I think things have moved towards clickbait, work. And hey, I'm not in journalism, so I don't get to make those decisions, right? I don't get to decide why, online publications are trying to survive in particular ways, or maybe there's always been critical reviews that are not necessarily, in my opinion, the most helpful way to.
Yeah, but it's always been publicity.
But it's always been for publicity and less about theater needs to survive, and we need to get people to the theater and let them make their own decision, whether they like it or don't like it, instead of making it for them before they ever get there.
Right.
There's a difference.
We did lose something when Everett
Yeah, we
left,
did.
for sure. And I hope that the Houston Press can continue their
Coverage.
good coverage.
And
Yeah,
that-
I mean, obviously right now, nobody's doing anything.
yeah,
but
right. I mean,
that's who covers it now. When they,
yeah.
at least there's that.
Right.
It's just, the Chronicle was great because it would land in everyone's house.
Because it got into everybody's lap. And I think, and I think it's great that, thank God we have the Houston Press to do, and we have other, and we have like, Donnie Wilson with Houstonia Magazine and Tara Gaines at Art and Culture, but they don't get to everything. They only get to 1 in 10 productions, or, Donnie gets to more than that, but not, Houstonia is not going to print everything. So it doesn't serve the whole entire community. So this is something that, and I know we've all talked about it as artistic directors, is how can we get coverage? How can we get a better reach into the community for advertising and selling what we do to get more audience? And that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the people that don't do this realize how much those ads are. Like if you have to buy one.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing if you're Coca-Cola or McDonald's or something, or even a business that is based on making money, but none of us are. We're not in the business to make money. If we break even on a show, we're so lucky.
I don't even know
if we make just enough to like, yeah, I mean, because we have to pay everybody, and all these people are working for, sometimes 6-8 weeks, depending on the run of the show, at least on a part-time schedule for that long. And like, what do you think we should pay them? $100?
I know.
And that's about what we could afford if we didn't get grants and
right. And we still aren't paying enough,
money.
particularly. And we try, I know you do too, like we do, make paying a real priority, and it's still not enough. But what are we supposed to do when we have to keep the lights on and we have to keep things rolling, and people just don't really understand the overhead cost of just keeping the place going.
And that's one reason why we are just a gypsy company now, because our budget is so low and I don't get paid. As the founder, I feel like it's up to me to just take it for the team, just so that we can make sure that we can still do a few equity contracts and also pay the non-equity people a decent stipend.
Yeah.
So probably the biggest budget line that I've even got is paying people.
I
But
understand.
it's still not enough. I mean, it still doesn't come out to minimum wage for as much time as they put in. So that's probably That's probably the biggest challenge.
I think that's really hard for people to understand, that basically even the union negotiates the contracts, the basic contracts at minimum wage.
Yeah.
That, you know, artists who have master's degrees quite often to work in a professional theater are getting paid minimum wage. And the theaters are struggling to make sure that they are accountable to at least that. And to feel like you're saying, I have to be accountable to make that hit $10 an hour is really heartbreaking. That somebody that's as skilled and as talented, and like, you know, all three of us have 30 years of experience. And when we go into a production and we make $10 or $12 an hour, that's crazy. So no wonder so many amazing, terrific artists quit. They
Yeah.
just burn out. You know, they have to have a day job doing secretarial work or teaching or doing something else. And it doesn't mean they don't like that. But like you, Jennifer, and I have no children.
Yeah.
How would I have had a child?
No, my child is a theater company.
That's my child too. And my dog. I'm like, hey, I have a dog. Okay, I have a little bit. And you have 2 cats and a dog. But it's tough, and people underestimate how much you have to sacrifice to be able to do what you do, Jennifer. And Philip and I have sacrificed, you know, all pay for a long time. And now we make very little pay as artistic directors so that the artists can be paid and we can maintain Studio 101, because we feel very strongly that that space can't die. There's just not enough.
Founders seem to be
spaces.
kind of stupid that way.
We always take the hit.
Okay. I know. I don't want the theater to die.
It's kind of like your baby.
It is.
Yeah.
It's totally like your baby. So you feel like, you know, well, you wouldn't let your baby starve or not have what it needed. So you take the hit. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough thing. And people don't understand how much you've sacrificed for that company and for this city in order to have that. Hey, Jennifer, that company is wonderful. It's a very important part of the fabric and the culture in this town theatrically.
And history now.
And the history. Yeah. I mean, it really is. I've told you many times that what you do is very inspiring to me. You're so intelligent and so, the work you pick and the pieces you understand and you put together are they're just so unique and so special that people don't take the time sometimes who don't go there to look at what you put together. And I think you're just so well read, you're so well cultured and versed in so many things, and it shows in the theater that you run. So
Thank
people
you.
need to check you
I
out.
also let other people have input too. When I'm choosing plays, a lot of times someone will come to me with something that they think we should do, and that's one thing I feel like when you don't have a lot of money or staff, it is important to also be collaborative and let people take ownership of things. And so I have to say, like, I do have some longtime artists who have worked with me for a while that have had a big hand in helping to shape the work that we're doing.
Yeah,
John Harvey and
Yeah.
Patricia Duran have both come to me with great projects, and the other John Harvey, I got 2 of them.
I know you do. I know you do.
If there's any other ones, they'll probably like find me eventually. And like, I think there was actually a 3rd one that I had involved somehow one time.
Well, I know Philip Hayes does a lot with you guys too, and he's terrific, talented, and adds.
Oh yeah, he's directed for us.
You know, he does a lot with a lot of theater companies in town. He's a really great asset to Houston too.
Yeah, I mean, just everybody that comes, that is part of our group. And a lot of times I might give people a little bit more rope to like do whatever than I should, but it pays off for the people who do bring a lot to the table. Every now and then there's someone who I regret giving them power or whatever, but for the most part, they're all amazing.
Yeah. And you're helping people learn, even if it doesn't do the perfect thing for you. And you know, personally, I'd say I'd seen 80% of your shows, and most of the time I've never walked out and not thought I didn't see something that made me feel like, oh, that was really cool and smart and different, and I should learn from that or steal that, or that's great. And So even, even a show that maybe I didn't understand or I wasn't totally clear on, I thought I learned something from and thought you did something either artistically with the production great, the actors were great. So they always have something that if people are willing to sit back and open their mind, even if it's one of your more avant-garde pieces, that is really wonderful.
I think that people might be interested in, like, I remember going to see a show that you put on. It was the one that we were talking about earlier about the foxes. It had
Foxfinder.
Foxfinder, was that?
Yeah.
Foxfinder, yeah.
Is that the one that had like a bunch of dead rabbits?
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
to make those dead rabbits.
Yeah. But I remember going, who did the costumes for that?
Yeah.
Afterwards,
great.
right? And looking and going, and it was LA.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
L.A. Cleveson, yeah.
Cleveson, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then that we ended up hiring LA, I don't know, half a dozen times
Yeah.
before she left town to get her master's
The whole set
degree.
was
And
great.
We always do that. We go to each other's shows and like,
Yeah. Ooh, I'm telling you, who's that person?
that's.
Yeah.
And you, I think, gave her first job in Houston,
I
right?
think you did.
Oh yeah. I think she was assisting Macy
Oh,
Oh.
a
maybe, yeah.
lot. Yeah,
she-
I don't know. I feel like maybe it was Macy that told me about her, or Eric James, who knows both of them.
Well, it makes sense that one of them would, because I know the three of them are really close. So that makes,
Yeah. I can't remember. I can't even remember who it was, but it was one of them.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, well, let's give her a try. And she was
Yeah, well,
great.
it's
she did.
great. Yeah.
I remember that show had a really amazing design style to it. And
Mhm.
yeah, we always
Yeah.
learn from each other that way. What do you
Right.
got?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I'll say that like I don't so there's a lot of plays that people are like, I didn't understand that. Sorry, my cat is
No, that's all right.
he's
Cat wants
kind
us
of
to
like
be laugh.
insane.
Yeah.
He's got mental issues.
All right.
So a lot of the time I don't even understand the plays because I figured out at some point, okay, it's like most people are not okay with that. So I need to try to make sure that I choose things that are in the aesthetic that I like, but I do understand them because people are going to ask me questions and I'm going to have to say, I don't really understand it either, but I don't need to understand.
What do you
it.
think? No, what do you
Like,
think?
yeah, I know, right? But I'm just like, yeah, what do you think about it? And people will like, a lot of people will pretend and they'll come up with something or whatever.
I know the other play I really liked too. What is the name of the play that you did with Autumn Clack and Courtney and James Belcher with the swimming girl, the
Oh,
swimming?
Pollywog, yeah.
That was really good
that was
too.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 𝗕𝗲𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗶, or
And that was avant-garde, but completely followable, right? So
Right.
that was a great example. That made me think of that when you said I had to pick things you could understand. I was like, oh, well, that
well,
was very
just, I
avant-garde.
mean, and things that I could understand, because a lot of times I was picking things based on like how they made me feel emotionally, or they would just seem so hilarious to me. And then I would like show it to other people and they're like, that was
Huh?
so weird. I remember 𝗕𝗲𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗶 one time came to see one of our shows and she, on the way out, she said, you are so weird, Jennifer Decker. And I was like, is it weird? Really? I thought it was funny. I thought it was a comedy. But then the people, when we got a review and then the person that reviewed it was like, I have no idea what's going on in this thing.
Right. You're like, oh, I really got it. I thought it was funny. Yeah.
So then I realized at some point, well, that's really probably not the kind of thing that I should choose. Every now and then, if something
Sure.
just really hits me, but if 90% of the people are like, what is this about? And pretty much 100% of the people are saying that. But there's some people that don't mind. Like I'm one of those
Right.
people.
And I don't think it's bad to do something that challenges you abstractly, that makes you want to think in imagery and poetically, and is can be a little more difficult because you have to stop for a minute and go, oh, I have to think differently than linearly, than I have to just normally think. But when it takes you 30 minutes and you still can't figure out how to think, then you're probably in trouble. That sometimes I go, I still haven't found out how to watch this. I can't even watch it. That sometimes is when I'm not sure what's going on. And I don't know that I remember feeling really feeling that way with you, because even on shows where I felt like I didn't totally understand, I thought you would always stage things and use sound and use the environment so well, probably because you understood things. So you gave an experience that was always fulfilling for me, even if I did walk out and go, Jennifer, you're so weird, I didn't understand that. But I would always go, but I like your sound guy. Can I take your sound guy? Because
Yeah, there was John Harvey wrote the founder, co-founder. He wrote a couple of plays that were basically poems. They didn't make any sense.
oh
But
yeah,
if I was directing them, or Greg Dean is another one that could direct them.
yeah.
We just knew that whenever something stopped making sense, you had to do something over here. It was kind of like put a projection over there, and then they'll look for a minute, and by the time they look back, it'll start making sense again. And like,
Right. Have someone decorating a Christmas tree in the corner or something, and it'll be all right. Yeah.
right.
That's great.
There was another swimming play. Maybe I think you guys did this one. Cordis and Skylar were in it.
Oh, dry land.
Oh, Dry Land.
That
Yeah,
was great.
A lot of
that was a
swimming
Susan
plays.
Smith Blackburn play.
Blackbird prize. Yep. That was a finalist.
Really excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
David-
how I got that, was from the Blackburn finalists.
That was great too. That was another really, that one was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I followed that one.
He doesn't follow very much.
I think that, if I very, very rarely do I enjoy a production where I can't kind of make it make sense, it's a fault of mine, I think, but yeah.
It's
Well,
probably
we got-
normal.
Well, no, he likes
plot.
he likes plot. Like we'll go to New York and watch something once in a while that's a little more abstract, and he'll get frustrated if he's
depends,
got to
though. There
figure
are-
it out sometimes.
There are some where
Some
you
it's
know,
all right, but a lot of times he'll be like,
some of the things,
Yeah.
that we've mentioned tonight, I really enjoy it, even though
yeah,
it
I
didn't
did all those. I loved.
add up perfectly for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that if I can like mix together the aesthetic that appeals to me with something that is also has a plot, that's when we're more successful. Than if it's just like, I have to do this because I think it's hilarious, but I couldn't tell you what it's about at all. And I have these images in my head about what I want it to look like, and then I'm gonna get a bad review, and everyone's gonna be like, what is going on in that show? And
Well,
the
sometimes
actors.
those are worth it if you get, like, I know you had a couple plays too where you got a grant to write it, to work on the writing process and put it up. And those are great, even if they don't end up being fully realized or fully plot driven, and they end up being where they might be in 5 years, but you were part of the original workshopping process of trying to get it off its feet. And we all got to see an original workshop production. That's great. And if Houston doesn't, maybe Houston isn't, like we've talked about, sometimes they don't know the difference between those people that are hobbyists who are having a good time in the community theaters and those of us who are trying, this is our profession. Sometimes I think we're not as good at saying, hey, this is a workshop production that we worked on for 2 months, and it's a version the author wants to put up and is going to take notes on, and we're putting this up, but it's not finished its complete incarnation. So you're seeing an early version. And sometimes people, I think, come to the theater and just think, oh, this is Broadway version, right?
Yeah.
This is what they'll see in Broadway in 6 months. Like, no, not always. And I know you've done some of those that have been early versions of plays that people are still working on. Within, if you get
Yeah,
a,
and
you do it.
yeah, and it would be better if we had a lot more time with it
Yep.
to sort of like help the playwright get it to another level by the time the performance happens. But as you know, like we just we can't take that much time. I mean, you're going to pay actors for 2-3 months or 6 months or whatever it takes to help this playwright. It's just not
A
feasible.
lot of money.
No, yeah, you have to be in a
Yeah.
environment that has a funding organization directed at like new works realization
Mhm.
or something, and that's just what they do. Or so, yeah. But so I know we're getting close to the end. So tell us some of your favorite things over the years you've
Yeah,
been
or
a
if we-
leader in this community
if
that
we
you
haven't-
liked in Houston.
Or if we haven't mentioned something that you want to talk about,
Yeah,
now would be a good time.
yeah.
Um, oh, I've been a little brain dead lately, and I've actually, like, it's given me a chance to slow down, because as you can imagine, the whole 20 years I've been running a theater, I've also had a full-time job of some sort.
Yep.
before
too.
I was a college teacher, before I was going to grad school, and I had a job in an office. I was running a travel department for this big corporation. Because in a lot of those kinds of places, like if you're like even the slightest bit organized and smart, you're going to be in charge if you're not careful.
Right.
And so
Yeah, you are.
I would always be in charge all of a sudden.
Yeah, don't be too good at your job because you'll immediately get promoted. And if you're kind of mediocre, they'll just kind of tell you how great you are all the time and never move you up, but just keep telling
Right.
you
And you can
great,
stay under the radar.
good job. Right.
So now I love my day job. My main job that I get paid for is as a college teacher at HCC, and it's a really great job. I teach my classes. I do, minimal meetings and other things there, and it gives me also the ability to keep running Mildred's Umbrella, but it does run me ragged. And so just the COVID situation making us slow down, and I had to stop doing productions. And I don't have a lot of staff, and I have a couple of part-time helpers with the admin, and just whoever I get to do shows. And I've had to be the tech director at times.
Yeah.
So I'm always there. And yeah, I kind of liked the slowdown a little bit. I don't like it that we haven't been able to do theater in a year. But
Yeah.
for myself, I've kind of liked to be able to like just regroup and like think about what I want to do next and everything, and how I want to take it forward. Maybe live within our means a little more and don't do so many shows, but just focus
Yeah.
our budget on a couple of quality shows a year. And
I think that's going to be a silver lining of COVID for a lot of people. They're going to come out. I know it's happened to me. They're
And
coming
me.
out going, what do I really want to do?
mhm.
Because, I was able to slow down and take a look at it from afar and go, this is what I don't miss, and this is what I do miss.
Yeah.
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 And Zoom, like we're all complaining about it now, but when you think about it, it could be like a thing that stays. There's that whole joke about this meeting should have been an email. Now we can do
Now
Zoom.
it'll
We
be
don't have to commute. We don't have to get dressed up. And yeah.
Yeah.
So
I do have to say that your day job as a teacher is responsible for some of my favorite Facebook posts.
I know, they're great.
Because your students are, well, both really. There are these inept, totally stupid, idiot students of yours who they give you good material. But then there's also, you also talk about students who obviously you've made a difference in their lives, and I always enjoy reading
Well,
those.
and who are really wonderful and do
Posts
a good
too.
job and surprise you and do something really cool. So that's
most of them are actually,
Yeah.
yeah. Most of them are. It's just like if one of them, like my favorite lately was the one that invented a whole show. I told them to do a review of a show, but we can't go see a show right now. So I gave them, made available for free to them a bunch of Shakespeare ones that I had, and a couple of Mildred's Umbrella that I could put on a private link that they could see. And then I told them about, like, there was one you guys were doing, so you had something going in 𝗘𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗀, and I was like, look, you can see any of these on a digital situation, and then you just do a review. So I have it all mapped out. Here's how the review has to be formulated and everything. And this student like created a whole show that they did at Miller Outdoor Theater based on the Brides in the Bath murders, because she saw my little paragraph about the drowning girls.
Oh
And
my God.
she like invented actor names and like a whole story. There was a whole story, and it was a musical.
Oh my God. That's so funny. How
I
did
called
she
her on it, and she didn't even reply. She just was like gone.
Weird.
Oh my God.
That's hysterical.
So what do you do with that? It's so creative, but yet it's like a
Like
total
not the
F.
assignment. Yeah, you're like,
I mean, yeah, it was a lie. So I took points off, but at the same time, she wrote a show, and like she invented people that were in it, and there were like, the music was great apparently, but she didn't like this one part, and I was like, you made this up. Like,
that's so great because like you're not going to know. I love the fact that you just gave them a bunch of shows that you've never seen. And the one that she's talking about is your theater. That's so
but then the other thing was like, it probably took way longer to invent that whole thing than it would have to watch
just
like an
watch it.
hour and a half show.
Oh my God.
That's so great.
Yeah,
That's great.
That's a perfect example. I missed that one.
That's all. Yeah. You have great stories. Yeah. I always like the ones about the homework stuff, the things people come up with why they don't have their homework on time and stuff. That makes me laugh. Those are always good. But anyway.
Is there a funny story from the theater that?
Yeah,
that
we'll
you
close
wanna
with
tell
some
us? Like,
funny story you might have over the 20 years.
if you have one, or not.
Or
you know,
not.
we don't have to.
I mean, I don't want to call they usually involve calling somebody out. So
I know,
if I
right?
describe anything that something that bad happened, probably someone that's watching will know it's them. Just one time I messed up a whole play myself.
There you
I
go.
can talk about that. It was my fault. It was Scotland Road, _J Hatcher. I think it was
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hatcher. Okay, so it's about they find this woman in the middle of the Atlantic on an iceberg dressed like the 1900s, and all she says is Titanic or something like that. And these fishermen bring her in, and this guy is obsessed with the Titanic and kidnaps her and gets this shady woman who's a psychiatrist to try to get her to talk, and she's not talking. So I was a psychiatrist, and the lights come up, and I'm in a lab coat, and I'm holding a clipboard. And then there's a scene in the middle where the girl she finally talks, and she tells the whole story. And she hadn't talked the whole play, right? And then the next scene after that, I'm in the same spot, the same lights, same guy standing in front of me, but I don't have a clipboard, I have books. So like, quick change in the back, they hand me the wrong prop, and the lights came up, and I started the wrong scene.
Oh no.
The one after. And the
Oh,
other actor would not get back on track. I realized it, and I was trying to get it back on track. And he's looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing? Stop! You're saying the wrong lines." And he didn't realize either. And so,
wow.
and the stage manager just kept it going, and the girl never talked. Like,
She didn't talk the play.
whole long a monologue of her telling what happened. So the audience is probably like, "What
play was that?"
It was my fault. And that was like 25 years ago.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. What's that character that never talked, floating around on an iceberg? Yeah.
Talked at the end, but like
not enough to make any sense, right?
Yeah, and it was my fault. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're close to 10 now. We have 2 minutes, 9. So I think we should let you head home, and thank you for spending an hour with us tonight.
Thank you. It's great to see you guys.
Yeah, we are so grateful that you came on. We love you and we miss you.
Well, let's plug Drowning Girls one more time.
Yes.
It's in the chat, the link to Drowning Girls. You can see it through February 6th.
Yes, February 6th. So please take advantage of it.
There it is.
And we're going to let Jennifer go, and then we're going to make an announcement about what's coming. So Jennifer's going to log off, and
Okay,
we'll
bye.
see you soon. Bye,
See you
Jen.
soon. Bye.
Bye. See you later.
All right, everyone. So thanks for
us.
staying with us. And we just wanted to give you the update on what's coming. So next, in 2 weeks on February 11th, we are going to have the artistic director of the Rec Room, Matt Hune, as our guest. And then following Matt Hune, 2 weeks after that, on February 25th, we're going to be joined by Kenn McLaughlin from Stages Repertory. So we hope you'll come and join us for our next couple of series. It's going to be really exciting. We get to speak to 2 of our other favorite folks. And that's it for tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us, for joining us. Take care.
Yep, have a great night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Beyond the Fourth Wall is produced by Fourth Wall Theater Company, Houston's home for extraordinary performances up close. Each guest is paid for their appearance on this series, in accordance with our mission to pay artists a living wage. Follow the links in the video description to support Fourth Wall with a tax-deductible gift, or to subscribe to our upcoming 10th anniversary season.
And I'm taking a French class on Zoom.
Oh,
There's like a French, I forgot what they're called, but they're like, one of the actors in our Asian Femme Fest goes there, and she's been going there forever.